Community, thank you all for being here to participate in this very, very special celebration of life for one of our dearest, Teresa Hollingsworth. My name is Merritt, and I am here to represent Teresa's family and friends who have organized today's event. Again, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I do have some special remarks that I hope to make it through, somewhat dry-eyed about my rock star friend Teresa. But first, I want to just provide an overview of today's event and what you can expect. There are some printed schedules out in the hallway, so you can follow along in real time. At any time this afternoon, as I mentioned earlier, though it was a bit loud, you might not have heard, we do have a memory table and a memory box. We would love to collect your special stories, words of remembrance, memories of Teresa. These would be very special for Liam and Jamie. And so there are cards on each table, more cards in the back. At any time this afternoon, please take a moment and just leave a little note about her legacy. We do have memorial cards and stickers and koozies for you to take home with you as a keepsake. So please help yourself. In the first part of the ceremony, people will be sharing some prepared remarks covering different aspects of Teresa's life and legacy. But you will all have an opportunity to weigh in with your thoughts and your special words in a community open sharing session a little bit later in the afternoon. About midway through the speeches, I'm going to call a 5 to 10 minute break so we can all get some fresh air or use the restrooms. We have some games outside. It's a beautiful Wednesday. All of you, especially kiddos, are welcome to move outside, run around at any point, and then rejoin us when you feel ready. After the ceremony, we will share food together. What an incredible spread of dishes I'm seeing already. And the games will continue outside. We will have a scavenger hunt for kids with some very fun prizes. So if you need anything at any point today, please come find me. I'm happy to help. And as a final note, I want to express my deep thanks and appreciation for some special people, a team that made today happen. Lorien, Heather and Jeff, Amy, Brownie and Cobb, Jamie, and the entire family. And with that, as they say in the military, you have been briefed with a situation report to a Marine like Tyler. I think they call that a sit rep. You've been to one of those, I think. So my sit rep is now done. And now I need to move on to do the hard things. So I have been asked to provide just some thoughts and an overview of Teresa's life and her spirit. So I'm going to try to do that for you today. Just blend in. Stay in your lane. Don't rock the boat. Don't make waves. Can we all agree that Teresa was none of these things along the way? She was a trailblazer, a brilliant woman, a brilliant scientist. She was a runner, a skier, a beautiful knitter, a fisherwoman, and an adventurer. She was a fierce mama and partner, a no-nonsense friend. She is all of this and so much more. Teresa did not blend in, she stood out. She did not stay in her lane, she forged her own path. She believed in truth, and she believed in and did some good trouble. She spoke up, she showed up for many of us in this room. She held you accountable, not because it was easy, but because she loved you that much. I can point to several moments in my life, some more recently than others, where I needed and got a Teresa adjustment Let me see with a raise of hands how many of you got a Teresa adjustment as well. I know that I am better for those, and I'm sure you are as well. She was confident, capable. She was emotional in the most beautiful ways, never afraid to feel deeply, to speak honestly, or to fight for what mattered. And what mattered to Teresa deeply was people, her family, her friends, and her communities. And this is all of you, and we will be hearing more about these communities later today. Teresa wore her heart on her sleeve, and that heart was fierce, generous, loyal, and full of passion. Whether she was laughing, loving, crying, or telling you exactly what she thought, you always got the real Teresa. In the 25 years I had the gift of calling her one of my dearest friends, I saw how she held people accountable, not to criticize, but because she believed in us, she called us higher. And she did it with a clarity that came from love. Her family was the heart of her world. Jamie stood by her side with unwavering strength. The beautiful house you two built has been home to so many of us and will always feel that way. And Liam, wise beyond your years, you carry so much of your mom's strength and light. She was so proud of you for finishing the White Mountains 100 last spring. You have her confidence, her spark, and you will always have her love. Her strength and spirit lives on in you. And her spirit lives on, in this community. Just look around, this is amazing. Teresa built real, honest relationships. She was an all-in kind of gal. She loved hard, and she loved through hard times. We are grieving. I am grieving. But let's also be thankful, because not everybody gets a Teresa in their life. Someone who makes you laugh, pushes you to grow, hugs you tight, and tells you that you are being absolutely ridiculous. Sometimes all in the same conversation, and often while sharing a dram of very peaty scotch, and a hefty one at that. So today we honor her with sadness, but also with love and laughter. Let's remember her voice, her fire, her honesty. Thank you, Teresa, for allowing me into your beautifully open heart and incredible family. Before I close, I want to speak directly to someone who gave the world one of its brightest forces, one mother to another about another. Linda, your love shaped Teresa's strength, her integrity, her fierce sense of loyalty. Today, we not only honor your daughter, we honor you. Thank you for raising a strong and confident woman who changed so many of our lives. Her legacy is also yours. Family, friends, neighbors, Teresa's voice is here with us today. Her bold, clear, passionate voice will echo in all of us. So let's us be her legacy. Let us keep telling the truth, holding each other accountable, laughing through the hard stuff, and loving with our own hearts. With that overview of this incredible woman, I am very honored to welcome her dearest, Jamie and Liam, to welcome you all to this special event.
Thank you, Merritt. It's amazing. I've struggled for many days to think about what to say and how to say it. Simply
content that Liam created, worked really hard on. I am super impressed because I can't do anything like this, and we're going to play it for you. Thanks. Thank you, Liam. That was amazing. So that is our opening, and what I would like to do now is just continue to build like this incredible presence of Teresa through all of you. So we're going to take a moment. Please channel your thoughts about Teresa. Maybe it's your first memory of meeting her, or that Teresa adjustment that you perhaps so well deserved. But let's take a minute to reflect on just how important she was to each of us. Perhaps whatever you were channeling can wind up in the memory books at the end today. So we are going to move into some planned remarks, some very special tributes from some special people. We are going to start with family, and I'll welcome folks up to deliver their remembrances. We have some very special dear friends. We have a professional tribute from Roger, and then we'll move into our community sharing portion, where I really welcome all of you to weigh in. And so I just wanted to keep planting that seed so we don't catch you off guard. Probably somewhere in this section of the programming, we're going to take a break and let everybody stretch and get some fresh air. So we have 3 talks from family, and we're going to start with a very special one delivered by Linda, Teresa's mom. Let's give her a rocket welcome.
So, I'm going to attend to some business first of all. Colorectal cancer is now the 2nd most prevalent cancer in the world. And it is increasing in people under the age of 50, and even now in people under the age of 40. And so if you're over 45, which is what our government will now pay for a colonoscopy, and you have not done that, as your super mother, I'm telling you, get your butt in there. So if you're at Lorien's really wonderful memorial, there were 2 remembrances. One was from the family and friends, and then one was from one of her colleagues. And both were really wonderful. But in Lorien's, he did mention that she came out swinging the doctor, and that is normal. She did. But there was another event that you don't know about, and that's that somewhere around the Terrible Two, she decided that the way that she needed to express herself was to scream nonstop. And if you're 2 years old and you want to control the world and everything around you, it can be really frustrating. And so she was doing this so much that when I take her into the pediatrician, she looks at me and she gets on her diplomatic, I'm going to deal with this hat, and she says, you know, I believe in corporal punishment under certain conditions. And I looked at her and I said, I don't hit her. You know, this is her. This is her. And she said, all right, you need to make her stop because she's going to ruin her vocal cords. Okay, all right, make her stop. So, what did I do? I reasoned with her. This is what you do with Teresa. Honestly. She starts screaming. I'd say, Teresa, well, her name was Carrie. You've got to stop. You've got to stop. You're hurting yourself. The pediatrician says you have to stop. And she did. I mean, that little fart, 2 to 3. You know, I tell you what. She ran her first boulder in 2nd grade. And she started with her class that were walking. And that's what 2nd graders do, you know, they walk in a group. And she thought, enough of that. And I'm waiting to watch the group come in. I kind of wandered out early. I think it must have been instinctive. And there she is, trucking in by herself, nobody else around her. You know, that was my girl. That was my girl. She may not have been the fastest, but she was the most consistent, even running the ridge race in Montana, which the Montana people can tell you about, when she was already suffering the symptoms of cancer and didn't know it. Always strong. Did you know, I was going to tell you a couple more things. Like one of the things that Amy and I just shared is that she did have a really good sense of humor. And she and Amy were making a presentation in high school about the sun also rises. And they hated it. But you know, you got to tell the plot, you got to tell the theme, you got to make a good presentation. And they would tell one aspect of it, and then they'd say, let's get a drink. And then they would tell another part of the plot, let's get a drink. And they kept doing that because Teresa said, all he did was drinking that book. So I'm sure they got an A, and I'm sure everybody laughed really hard, because that's the way they approached things in those wonderful teenage years. In college, she was over in Lancaster, and her good friend Kath is not here. Am I straying too long?
No, keep going.
Okay.
As long as you
Okay.
want.
So a woman who became a very good friend was with her, and they went up to Edinburgh, and wasn't that great until they got on the statue of the horse. The two of them climbed up on the statue. I'm not kidding. And they thought it was great, but the Scottish constabulary did not. And so that was a short-lived adventure. And then it rains all the time in Western England. You know, it's the Gulf Stream, and it's kind of counterintuitive because you think that that would be warmer. At least I did, because you know I'm from the West. But no, it rains a lot. And so she would always be mentioning that it rained, and her raincoats and umbrellas, and then how everybody would just forget umbrellas, because what's the point? You're going to be out in the rain anyway. That was Amy's comment. And I get one mail, and all it says in this email is, it's raining. Fancy that. End of story. To me, I loved it because she had absorbed the English culture. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about this warrior, my daughter, the warrior. For 770 years, the Spanish resisted Moors in the Iberian Peninsula. And you know, it was a little back and forth. Even El Cid was a mercenary These were warriors. And in the year 1492, when they finally expelled the Moors from the Iberian Peninsula, the same year that Columbus stumbled across the New World, these warriors had nothing to do. Most of them were not landed gentry. They were fighters, they weren't farmers, they weren't craftsmen, and what do you do with yourself? Well, you go to the New World. That's what you do. And so many of them came into Mexico, and very soon after that, many of them came up into the New Mexico region. And I have to tell you, I think about that, and I don't know what the King of Spain thought he was going to get out of that. You know, I mean, this is desert, this is dry, there's no gold up there. I don't understand. I wouldn't have done it, but they did. And this group of people lived in isolation, primarily with little contact to Mexico City for hundreds of years, becoming stronger and stronger. And Teresa is a descendant of Los Conquistadores. She is a descendant of them. She traced her. And so my warrior child faced life and cancer in the way you'd expect. You fight to the end. You do not give up. You fight to the end. And she did. Through her first treatment, radiation, she either ran, walked, or rode this bike, which had 10 speeds on the handlebar, up First Hill, Seattle, to get back to our house. Sometimes with diarrhea, sometimes nauseous. That's what she did. She walked and ran right up until the very, very, very end. So, true daughter of Los Conquistadores, and I'm proud to say mine. But there's another side to her that I wish to share, and Merritt touched on this. And this is the vision that I think I see of her, and that is the hummingbird. High energy, traveling long distances between green browns in summer. The rufous hummingbird comes all the way to southeastern Alaska, in fact. Fast little things, and you can't hold on to them. Magpie will sit there, raven will sit there, eagle will sit there, but the hummingbird won't. It's gone. It's elusive. It's fast. And it goes from flower to flower, sucking the nectar out of it. And like Teresa, she'd go to person to person to person, getting that love from them, feeling that love, knowing that love. And then, just like the hummingbird's beak and feathers cross-pollinate, she would take that very same love and it would be passed to the next person. How many of you know each other because of the fact that Teresa introduced you and have become friends? Cross-pollination of that love. And when she had her last surgery, dear friends, Amy, Brendan, Lindsay, Merritt, Brian, Jessica, Kendra, Kat, those that were close, Lorien, came to be with her. And they didn't come for just, a couple of hours. Hi, Teresa, get well. Hope you feel better. They were there for days. And they would sit with her for hours. And then she asked that, we just one at a time because she needed to concentrate on each person. And it was on my turn to go in, and she was kind of quiet. And then I remember her closing her eyes and just turning her head like this. She said, I feel so much love. I feel so much love. Everybody coming to be with me, to support me, I feel so much love. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Don't sit down.
I'm sitting. Too late.
Too late.
Try and stop me.
Would you like to say
Yep.
a few words?
Thanks, Mom. That took a lot of the pressure off of me. I mean, I guess I expected this, but it's still really overwhelming to see all of you here. Thank you all for coming. There is no circumstance which Teresa would have allowed this to happen while she was still alive. She did not enjoy being the focal point for celebrations like this, which is too bad because people would have, clearly. Interesting prompt that I'd never thought before, Merritt. Think of my first memory of Teresa. No clue. But every year on my birthday, she'd tell her first memory of me. I was born at home, she was the third person to hold me. And she always said that she was so excited to have me there. She was so looking forward to having a baby brother. And I kind of thought she was lying, but it was the truth, because if she didn't like me, I'd have known. And she did, and what a good thing that was. Well, so her influence on my life could not possibly be overstated, and it's a really good thing I don't have to try, because I think most of you know what it's like. Couple of stories from when she was just a hell kitten. Family road trip, 1980s. Family budget didn't account for air conditioning, driving through the Mojave Desert with little spray bottles to moisten ourselves so that the draft would kind of try to cool us off or whatever. And she's like, we must have been camping or something. We had the jar of salt. The jar of salt, right? Normal thing. Probably a good reason for it, I don't remember. But she's like, hey man, if you eat a palmful of this salt, I will give you something really cool. And I was like, well, okay. And I mean, it was a profoundly awful experience. I don't know exactly like physically what that much salt would do. So it'd probably kill me, I guess, if I'd if I hadn't backwashed it, out of the water. But it was a really, really horrible experience. And she laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and thought it was so cool, and I never got anything cool. And I think just not much longer later, so right, the 80s free-range children, she ended up looking after me a whole lot. Oh, should be damned. It wasn't really like a, babysitter, like a paid babysitter thing. It was just I came along with the bargain. And we would entertain each other by like this one time we decided let's take the drink mix and mix it with the wrong thing, right? So let's take the Kool-Aid and we'll mix it with the milk. Isn't that wild? And then so she prepared this, what she presented to me as oh, it's chocolate milk, but it's mixed with water. And she had this mischievous look on her face and watched me, and I saw her watching me, and I realized the outcome of this has a lot of potential. Relationship was really simple, provided a couple of criteria was met. One is you do what she wants you to. And so I took a big giant mouthful of this really questionable liquid. Second criteria of relationship was to keep her laughing, and the rewards are immeasurable. So as soon as I got enough of it into my mouth, I just sprayed it in this fountain across the kitchen. And she loved it. She laughed and cackled, and we talk about it all the time. It just comes back, right? So that's the thing. That's like my coping skill in life is get somebody laughing, and there you go. And getting her laughing was consistently pretty much all you had to do. You mentioned when she went to England. She would goad me a lot. She was really like a nudge. She was really very like subtle suggestions, not so subtle suggestions, identifying potential in people and extracting that. So when she went to England, she made me send her emails every day, and it was like, email was weird, like you had to log in through like a military grade little matrix things and know how to code in order to send, anyways. She got me to send her letters, and so I was writing her letters, and that was the start of the whole, know your audience thing. I ended up doing broadcasting, radio, and television. And they say, if you're going to be like talking publicly or on camera in a radio or writing something down, you can't write for the whole audience. You can't write for the whole world. Kurt Vonnegut said, you don't open a window and make love to the world. You have to think of one person, and you write to them or you talk to them, and I talk to her. We're very different. The game of life came really easy to her. Set goals, achieve it, have your secondary goal lined up and ready to go for when you're rolling into that next thing. And she, apparently to me, just advanced really directly, on a straight line, process to process to process, and then married, building a house, PhD, incredible career, really quickly. And I was, not really quite on that track. I mentioned she would really do a lot of nudging me. I did a lot of foundering, a lot of resisting, not quite my thing. Well, anyways, that train of thought was a dead end. Apologize. It'll come back, I'm sure. Just give me a second. I had this other memory of like being a kid at the grandparents' house, and I'm like just off in a different world, right? Like making boy noises, like squids wrestling and stuff like that. She's debating our poor grandparents and winning with logic and charm and guile as like the youngest, different people, right? But she also, I think, recognized that not everybody did that and would search for ways to kind of share this natural ease she had of like achieving stuff, and like, why doesn't everybody achieve this way? It's easy, come on. We took a lot of road trips together. She opened the world to me, traveling to the desert, traveling to around England with her. I wrote Montana, but it included Canada, but Canada was really just so that the 18-year-olds could drink. I'm not supposed to, a lot of road trips, a lot of long road trips. And on one of these road trips out to the East Coast to visit family, the two of us drove, trading shifts and napping and stuff, super, definitely legitimate, okay, not at all dangerous or anything like that. And we were in Pennsylvania, and we erupted into this nuclear fight, this incredibly damaging, awful, terrible fight, because we noticed that there was a lot of roadkill on the road, and she's like, highway department needs to be picking up these dead deer, and I was like, maybe they got other stuff to spend their money on. Well, I mean, that's right, like, violated that rule, like, always do what she says, and the consequence of not doing what she says was this huge, awful, terrible fight about absurdly nothing. Same road trip. At the tail end, we're returning home. We'd driven all night, I think from Chicago or something. The sun is rising. We drive into the Boulder Valley as the sun is hitting the Flatirons, and the radio is playing Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, right? And it's just the euphoria of that instant is like equally as profound as all the trauma we had caused arguing and bickering. Just this incredibly huge moment that, big. Most of you who met me through her liked me before you knew me. And if you knew me and then met her, you liked me more after meeting her. She was an ace up the sleeve, a secret weapon, or as they sometimes refer to sledgehammers, a persuader. And she had a soft spot for underdogs. See, it came back. We'll go back to that soft spot for underdogs thing. Did a lot of believing in people until they believed in themselves. Sooner you started to see it her way, the better off you were. So that's the influence she had on my life. And I don't know, like, what's the get to the point, right? Like, I don't know if there's a point, but I was trying to think of a point, and I've been, obviously I haven't mentioned really any of you at all, so I apologize about that. It was a pretty disorganized and difficult thing. But she had this funny memory that always skewed toward like the impossibly good. She was a confirmed and total optimist. Even like, with some cynicism and stuff here and there, but I think ultimately at her core, a total optimist. And if something hadn't turned out the way she liked it, she would remember it as it had. And I guess that's my final thought, is belief. As you mentioned, thank you everyone who helped put this together. Thank you all for coming. We're going to need a lot of each other, I think.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Avery, Teresa's niece. Even though we live in Minnesota and it's 2,000 miles away from each other, I've always admired all the things she did for me. For example, for my birthday, I would get a memory package from her, or a monthly package from her, and I would get a monthly package from her, and the package had a whole bunch of stuff inside of it, like bracelets, journals, pens, and picture frames, mainly hair and makeup products. I'm still receiving these packages right now, and for some reason, there's always an item of slang that reminds me of Teresa. She also knit me items like hats and blankets as well. One winter, when I came to visit, we were all snowmobiling and snowboarding, and I pointed off into the distance and said, I want to go there. Teresa said, let's do it. So we all loaded up into the truck and went exactly to where I pointed, which I learned was Esther Dome. As we raced there to watch the sunset as a family, I will always hold that memory forever, and I'll always be grateful for my Aunt Teresa and what she did for me. We'll do it again. Just an hour or so ago, Jamie's lovely parents went around to some special friends and thanked this community for the support they've shown Jamie and Liam and Teresa through the years, and I feel that community is you guys. But these are two of the most incredible families, full of some of the most beautiful, authentic people, and I think I can speak on behalf of friends and Fairbanksians, thank you for letting us in to both of your worlds too. We have 4 remembrances from friends: Jeff, Amy, Brownie, and Kendra. I think we're going to start with Jeff. Where's Jeff? There he is.
this, and we'd get together and sit on the deck, talk about the things we needed to do or things we needed to get ready. And they said, who's going to speak? You want to speak? I'm like, hell no. I didn't say that, but in my head I was like, oh God, I hope they don't ask me to speak. And they did. And it's like getting up in front of a group. I speak in front of groups all the time. Sometimes it's contentious and people are yelling at each other, and it doesn't bother me a bit. I don't get up and talk about my feelings in front of large groups of people. It's like nightmare fuel. But Teresa was a really good friend to us, part of our family. And so I wanted to do this to honor that friendship. And some of the things that Kendra and Lorien said like really resonated when I was thinking about what I wanted to say. One of those was that Teresa loved to make me uncomfortable. Like, loved it. In any way she could. And if she found something that made me uncomfortable, like, that was it. That was the end. That was going to happen every time I saw her. And, like, she got Liam to call me Jeffy. Jeffy. And I'm like, nobody in my life has ever called me Jeffy. So he's calling me Jeffy. And she had found another name that she could call me that was even worse than Jeffy, which we won't even talk about. And so I was like, well, this gives her another chance to make me really uncomfortable. But like Lorien mentioned, like there's no way that she would let this happen. So getting back a little bit, I'm going to talk about her too, and I hope that someplace she's squirming a little bit right now, and I hope she laughs a little bit too. This is about us. This is all about us here. Mourning, losing Teresa, and celebrating her life. But this me up here is about Teresa. This is for her. But I had to think about what I was going to say, and that's kind of weird because I'm talking about Teresa to a whole room full of people that know Teresa, some of them well, in different ways than me, different settings. But this is the Teresa that I know, and I spent some time thinking about what are the things to talk about with her. Teresa has some characteristics that we've already talked about that kind of jump off the page at you a little bit. I think like maybe a show of hands, people that recognize how fiery she could be when she wanted to be fiery. Like she was not an ambiguous person at all. And Linda mentioned how that fire and that drive was present through her battle with cancer, and it was, and we all experienced that with her. Thank you for Jamie. And it was with her to the very last day. Like that was brutal and painful and uplifting to see. Like Teresa was Teresa to the very end. I texted Jamie, and I knew that the hospice nurse was coming. I texted him and asked how that went, and he texted that she kicked her out. And I was crying, and I was laughing, and I was happy. And I feel bad about that because it was hard on Jamie. But that was Teresa being true to herself to the last second. This is the hard part. The other parts of this are going to get better. It's not better. It'll be the same, but it'll be easier for me. It was hard. So the characteristics that jump off the page for Teresa with me are her fire, her intelligence, and how much fun she was. And hopefully everybody got to experience all that. And nobody's as simple as those three characteristics. We're all complicated people. I won't even really speak to her intelligence too much because I'm not qualified to. She was just smart, and she was, like Lorien mentioned, she would, no matter what we talked about, she would know something about it. I would ask about a bug, and she'd know something about a plant. And we would get together and watch football games, and she would, you can't throw that pass into Tampa 2 coverage. You gotta check down on that. You gotta throw it in the flats. It didn't matter. I don't think I knew for a long time, what an incredible reader she was. She would burn through books at a crazy rate. I came over and she's reading a book, and then I come over a day later and she's reading a different book. And I'm like, you give up on the book? And you gotta try harder. And she's like, no, that was 2 books ago. And it's like, oh, she's playing with a loaded deck. Just really, really smart. When she needed to know about the Indian Child Welfare Act, she became an expert on it by reading about it, and would, to the point where she knows more about it than the lawyers do. When she needed to learn about cancer treatment, that's how she attacked it. And I'm sure she challenged a lot of doctors with what she knew. And that's just how she operated. My relationship with Teresa was just fun. Our relationship was based on having fun and laughing, laughing hysterically, and occasionally whiskey. We both loved whiskey. And we met, another thing Lorien said that resonated with me, I was thinking about the things that Teresa and I had in common, and we're both kind of we like some of the same music a lot, and we would talk about that a lot, and we like fishing, and we maybe both slightly antisocial behavior sometimes. Not a big group people. This sort of thing is horrifying to me, would be horrifying to her too. But Lorien kind of hit the nail on the head. We just laughed a lot. That was the key to our relationship. Heather, I should have started this at the beginning, but my wife Heather and I met Teresa and Jamie 14 years ago. We moved in the neighborhood. Actually I met them before that with Lorien on a bike ride. We rode mountain bikes and went to their house and then kept on going somewhere. And then, 6 years later.
She was so pissed off. She's like, what are you doing inviting real bikers over for a bike ride?
Yeah. 6 years later, we're living in the neighborhood, and Heather tells me that we're going to Teresa and Jamie's, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like the lumberjacky guy and Lorien's sister. and So we went down there and had dinner and played cards and had fun and laughed, and then we did again and we did again. And before you know it, we've done it like 1,000 times. And it's a routine that we're gonna go down there and we're gonna play cards and we're gonna have dinner, we're gonna play cards. By that time, we're gonna, like, Liam's gonna have to go to bed. We're gonna be quiet for like 15 minutes. And then we're gonna play some more cards. We'll probably have a couple of cocktails while we're doing it. And we would laugh so much, and we'd stay down there till 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and come back. And it was so natural and so much fun. We just got to be so close with them. And I really, really appreciate that and value that a lot. And we would, you know how sometimes if you have a couple of cocktails, you get a good idea, and then you have another one, and your ideas come kind of great. And then eventually these are the best ideas in the world. And Teresa and I did that a lot. And they were the best ideas in the world. We, like, one night, decided we were going to go to Dutch Harbor charter fishing, which I don't think anybody goes to Dutch Harbor charter fishing, but we did. And Heather and Jamie are part of it. This isn't just me and Teresa. Like, one of us two was going to be the one that took it to the next level, but they were definitely complicit in all these things. And so it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, we're booking flights to Dutch Harbor to go fishing. And then Teresa and I got the idea one night that we would start a whiskey field book where we review whiskeys that we sample, and but not seriously review. We review them kind of sarcastically, and it was the best idea that I've ever had in my life. Whatever my part of that was. I know Teresa had better ideas than that, but I never have. And we had guest reviewers. I'm pretty sure Brian got to guest review one time. Bobby guest reviewed. Like, many people have got to participate in it. And we would get together and we would start laughing about that. And I'm pretty sure Heather and Jamie did not think that was very funny at all. They would just eye roll at us. We would get to the point of, like, we're going to start reviewing this one right now. Yeah. So much fun, so many memories of that. Fishing trips. I won't keep on going through all those because there's too many of them, and it's just me reminiscing. And you guys weren't there, and Jamie's already starting to roll his eyes a little bit. I'm trying to decide how I want to finish this. I guess the first thing I'll say is that about 10 years ago, a friend of mine lost her husband, and we were talking about his spirit, and we decided his spirit was what lived on in us when they were gone. And that's kind of always resonated with me a little bit, and so I feel like, you know, some of you are going to have to keep Teresa's fire going, and you got your hands full. And some of you are going to have to keep, like, her intellect and intelligence going, and that's going to be a heavy lift too. And some of us get to just keep the fun going. And I'm happy that I'm in that group. I love you, Teresa. Miss you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this, I believe, is the oldest friend outside of family that we have.
Richie, and I met Teresa in 4th grade. And we were sitting across from each other. It was, I think, probably her first week at the school. She was new to the school. And the assignment was to take a portrait of the person sitting across from you, okay? And I was a very serious student, and I was gonna take that very seriously. So I stared at her like this, like I'm staring at Lorien right now. And it was very uncomfortable for her, and I didn't know that. And then I made a portrait of her that didn't really look like her, but had every single freckle on it. And then she didn't talk to me for like 4 years. Because I did not know until much later that I had insulted her so much by taking this art assignment so seriously. No, I don't know if that's the reason, but it was funny because she actually kept that portrait, and then we like exchanged the portraits of each other to each other. And years later showed me this portrait. It was bad. It did not do, like, and I just if you ever take a portrait of someone, just never show it to them unless you think they look beautiful in it, which is what I learned from that again. So, but luckily by the 8th grade she had forgiven me, and I remember we were both home for the summer, and it was the summer of maybe 7th to 8th grade, and we just spent the whole summer like biking around Boulder, Colorado, where we're from, biking on the trails and swimming in the very cold creeks. There were certain watering holes I remember we would visit, and we were teenagers, you know, like we were teenagers, and we were trying to be cool, and we thought sometimes we were really cool. And at one point, you know, we would go swimming in these creeks like a lot. I remember a lot. I don't know how much, but a lot. And we got used to it, you know, and we thought we were really cool because we were just like so like nonchalant about getting in this freezing water. And at one point there was a watering hole that you could go to, and at one point there were these other teenage girls who were about our age. And you know how teenagers are, they like to, well anyway, you know how teenagers, everybody's been a teenager here or will be one. And we would just go into the water, and we were so cool. And these other girls would like go into the water and scream and be girly, and we thought that was really not cool. Anyway, it was just really nice. It was great to be a teenager with Teresa. We were able to really drill down very deeply into intellectual conversations, very deep conversations about Beatles records. At one point we, I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but if you draw a face upside down on your chin, like an eye and a nose, and then you cover up the rest of your face and go upside down like this, it looks really weird. And it's really funny, and you can do lip syncing to like Help by the Beatles. Help, I need somebody, help. And you can stare at the chin of the other person, you can't see the rest of their face, and it's extremely funny. Especially if you're a teenager. Anyway, so I'm just really grateful that I got to spend that time with her, and then later, you know, we were getting older, and we helped each other through breakups, like we helped each other through all that angst of, you know, trying to find the loves of your life and doing all the things, and so anyway, that was all off the cuff. I have some notes also. So we went in the 4th grade teenage together, you know, okay, great. So I just, you know, I wrote down some adjectives that I think of, that I was thinking of as I was reflecting on Teresa, and probably everybody has their own, but I wanted to just kind of go through them. Loyal, radiant, argumentative, funny, curious, opinionated, athletic, kind, fearless, except when it came to snakes, At one point, we were walking and there was a snake. There happened to be a snake around, and she literally crawled up onto me. Anyway, that was. But usually very fearless. Serious commitment to really cool pajamas. Just really cool pajamas, like throughout life, really. So, I just feel like, the instigator part, I don't know, like, if I would have been able to have any kind of social life as a teenager without Teresa's intervention, so I'm really forever grateful. And I feel very privileged to be up here today, because she really meant so much to me as a friend. And it's very incredible to see how many people are here today to help celebrate that. It feels weird to call it a celebration, doesn't it? I mean, does anybody really feel like? Because I only do when I'm trying to cover up the other thing that just almost came out. Yeah, I loved her, she loved me. It was very clear that we loved each other, and that was very good. And I think that's all I'm going to say.
I am going to make an executive decision and call a 5-10 minute break. Let's see, let's come back at,
is remembering them, is keeping them alive through their memories, through our memories of them. So I'm really grateful to see so many people here who are carrying all of this together. And will continue to do so. There are people in this room who have known Teresa their lives, or most of them. People who have known her for decades. Some people have only known her for a few years, but she was such a big presence that it was impossible to know her for even just a short period of time and not have 1,000 memories of her and 1,000 feelings about her. I'm going to limit myself to just a few that really epitomize Teresa for me. The first was about 15 years ago, almost 16 years ago, when I gave birth to my son. Teresa came into the hospital room and said, "I'm here to be Galen's godmother, but we don't really believe in that, so I'm his godless mother." And so I said, "You know what that means, right? You also know that's not a self-appointed role." She said, "Oh, okay, yeah, but I'm still his godless mother." And I was like, "Okay, that's great." And she was. I think she got that wasn't a self-appointed role. I think she also got that those rules didn't apply to her. So we got that out of the way real fast. The second memory is not really a single memory, but it encompasses every Friday night of my life for the last decade, 15 years, I don't really know, a long time. Somewhere along the line, it was decided that I would make homemade pizza every Friday night for my family and hers, which includes gluten-free pizza. And at times, dairy-free cheese. So every Friday night, I would make pizza. Jamie would come over at 5. he and I would drink beer, solve the world's problems. Liam would show up with, maybe sometimes on his own or with Jamie. Teresa would always come late. And we had Friday night family dinner. Every Friday. We had it even when Teresa wasn't in town. And those dinners became an anchor for me. Not only because there's a lot of problems in the world and Jamie and I needed to solve them, but also because we knew what we were doing and we knew we were building something. We were building a family. And I think that for me, that was something, we've heard people talk about different words to describe Teresa, and I guess I would say fiercely loyal, especially if you were family, or chosen family. And she would come in guns a-blazing if she thought you were a friend. If you needed her in your corner, she was the person you would come in. So, I want to keep this short so I don't do something bad like ugly cry. But I do want to just say that for me, we carried each other. And we carry those memories and we keep her like that. And I know for myself and for my husband that Jamie and I will never carry this alone. Thank you.
We have one final special friend tribute. Kendra, please join us.
Okay, hi, I'm Kendra. First, I want to point out this gorgeous shawl. Teresa made this for my wedding, even though she had a lot of things going on in her life. At that moment, the lace work is beautiful, if you know anything about knitting, and it is the 100% absolute star of my wedding photos. So last night I stopped by Jamie and Teresa's. Before I left, I stood in the entryway, and the scene felt so much like Teresa. Like she would come out of the bedroom or down the stairs, say hello to Leah, and be greeted by the people who loved her most, even though there were too many people there for her liking. And that reminded me of the first time I visited Fairbanks, which was during Christmas 2018, in the life and the community she had built here, and I saw a lot of things that I dreamed of creating in my own life. I met Teresa in the middle of the night at a Motel 6 on the outskirts of Phoenix. I had accepted an invitation to raft the Grand Canyon from a friend who had to cancel at the last minute, which led me to opening my hotel room door very slowly in the middle of the night to let in two strangers from Fairbanks, Alaska. The next day, we hiked together to the bottom of the Grand Canyon to Phantom Ranch to join our group. I was thrilled and a bit intimidated to meet Teresa and Brownie, two outdoors women from the interior of Alaska. And I was soon thrilled to discover our shared loves of knitting, rivers, and whiskey. Floating desert rivers have always been the most sacred experiences in my life, so it's not surprising that that trip would bring me a sacred friendship. We all know Teresa skipped the small talk and the niceties and got straight to the core, to the heart of things. And the bond among our group of 16 on that trip was something really unique and really special, and I know that Teresa was the core of that group connection we built. Over the past 7 years, I've been immensely lucky to spend a lot of time with Teresa. Lots of trips to talk about, but I'll share a couple favorites. One of my my favorite river trips was our attempt to pack raft the San Juan River and hike out Grand Gulch. Unfortunately, when we got to Utah, there was 2 feet of snow on the Colorado Plateau, with water melting into torrents down all the side canyons, including the canyon we were supposed to hike out of. So our trip began a 5-day easy float on the San Juan. There's one notable rapid on that river, and Teresa was the only one who knew how to brace a pack raft and keep herself upright. Ryan and I flipped our boats and yard sailed our way through. A good reminder to tie your map to the boat, but rivers all go downstream. You don't really need a map. The river was so incredibly silty, I'd never seen anything like it. We had to let the water settle all night before we could filter it. And now, thankfully, I have these memories ingrained in the sand, lodged in the zippers of my backpack forever. Our friend Will, who we met on the Grand, met us at the takeout. We convinced him to run shuttle for us. I had no idea that was like an 8-hour drive for him. We just thought it was around the corner. So we met him at the takeout, and I'm pretty sure we had the entire desert to ourselves. He brought us a bottle of whiskey and a BB gun. And that night, we decided to treat ourselves to a fancy evening. We taste tested all the varieties of freeze-dried pad thai. We mixed whiskey with lemon-flavored Crystal Light and operated a firearm. And one of my favorite photos of Teresa is her shooting aluminum cans with the red canyon walls behind her. And last summer, Teresa and I got to have our last river trip together. We were so incredibly lucky that Teresa and Liam were in Montana and joined us on Forrest's son, my 2-year-old son's first overnight river trip on the Missouri River. Teresa was an exceptional person. We've talked about that a lot. And one thing that she did exceptionally well was love and accept people exactly for who they are. But, and this has been alluded to, she also challenged all of my assumptions, called me out, and told me exactly when, why, and how I was wrong. Teresa was radiant, authentic, unapologetic. She was the most thoughtful gift giver I've ever met and had the best memory of anyone I've ever met. She was also incredibly well-read, not just about botany and science. And when I was going through a particularly challenging period in my life, she sent me a poem, A Color of the Sky by Tony Hoagland. And I keep this poem taped to the wall above my desk, and I consult it often. It helped me accept uncertainty, to appreciate the nuance of difficult circumstances, and most importantly, that even during the saddest of times, when it's tempting to wallow in the pain, that the world carries on, offering us endless beauty when we're ready to embrace it. The end of that poem reads, outside the youth center, between the liquor store and the police station, a little dogwood tree is losing its mind, overflowing with blossom foam, like a sudsy mug of beer, like a bride ripping off her clothes, dropping snow-white petals to the ground in clouds. So nature's wastefulness seems quietly obscene. It's been doing that all week, making beauty and throwing it away and making more.
Some really beautiful memories and tributes from different corners of Teresa's life. I was so lucky to do field work with Teresa for many, many years, and she was brilliant in science to science. Thank you for not talking
Yeah, I was on the way to here.
You got a really, I'm not a microphone guy.
When I was driving here today, I thought about what Teresa would think of this gathering, and I know exactly what she would say, but it's completely inappropriate for me to say that right now. So, Teresa was not only a remarkable human being, but and a close friend to all of us, but she was also a highly accomplished biologist made significant contributions to our understanding of boreal forest in interior Alaska. She was a leading expert in the ecology of black spruce communities and how fire disturbance interacts with landscape and ecosystem factors to influence community assembly and what the forest looks like today. After completing her master's in Lancaster in 2000, she was recruited by Marilyn Walker and Terry Chapin to join the biology department here at UAF. And thank you, Marilyn and Terry, for getting her here. Her PhD project was completed 4 years later in 2004, and it's a rigorous physiognomic study that couples vegetation composition and detail with ecosystem function. She set up 146 sites across topographic gradients along a climate gradient that extends from the US-Canadian border all the way to the Brooks Range. And she quantified a whole series of factors that allowed her to characterize and name black spruce forest communities in a way that had never been done before. She found that black spruce communities differ in the richness of vascular and non-vascular plants, what the diagnostic species were, and how soil characteristics and topography predicted the distribution of these community types. She also showed that these community types vary temporally and spatially. Varied spatially from regional scales to landscape scales, and varied temporally from successional dynamics to the temporal scale of landscape evolution. She found that the variability among different black spruce communities was as variable in ecosystem properties as that among all other forest types in interior Alaska, which is really remarkable. She also showed that plant community composition was as important as abiotic factors or landscape characteristics in predicting soil carbon. She could predict soil carbon from vegetation dynamics. In particular, it appeared that the presence of key species and the diversity of certain functional groups, for example, stagnant mosses, rather than the overall species richness of mosses, are powerful predictors of carbon content in black spruce stands across massive regional scales. The year after finishing her PhD, she became the lead research ecologist at BECRU, which is the Boreal Ecology Cooperative Research Unit, here at University of Alaska, which is part of the Pacific Northwest Research Station in Portland. So she was a full-time federal employee. And about that time, she became the co-PI of the Bonanza Creek program. The PNW Research Station funded the Bonanza Creek program jointly with the National Science Foundation. And Teresa served as the point person for the Forest Service involvement with the Bonanza Creek. We had a long history of Forest Service involvement in research here at UAF when the Institute of Northern Forestry was located on Lower Campus. Teresa, I was the PI of the LTER at the time, and Teresa and I would go down to Portland on a regular basis once or twice a year and talk with the station director about the importance of their support. And this was not a trivial thing to accomplish because the Forest Service really has very little land in interior Alaska. And she was a pervasive force in her administrative duties with the Forest Service. And her efforts were absolutely critical to sustaining the funding that we had from the Forest Service for the Bonanza Creek LTER. One of the synthesis projects she worked on with the LTER involved the analysis of long-term vegetation data that we had collected over 25 years. So by the time she got here, we had 25 years of very detailed data of vascular and non-vascular plants along a chronosequence of stands along the Tanana River here right below us. And the successional dynamics of these forests go way back in the history of studying interior Alaska because Drury's work 70 years ago on the Kuskokwim really paved the way for a lot of the ideas about our understanding of how vegetation develops over time. And she found that many of the things that she found in the data were very consistent with some of the patterns that were established in the 70s and early 80s. But she also found some striking inconsistencies with many of these patterns that suggested alternative successional pathways that were driven by factors such as herbivory or pathogens or climate disturbance, whether it's flooding or drought or freeze-thaw cycles or whatever. These inconsistencies suggested these alternative successional trajectories for which there is no later analog that we could see on the landscape today. Similarly, there are successional patterns that we see on the landscape today in later succession that we don't see in early succession. So there's some really, really interesting puzzles. The classic, of course, is Siberian alder, which is seen widely throughout white spruce stands along interior Alaskan rivers, but it's nowhere to be found in early successional stands from which these stands had ostensibly arisen. So there were a lot of really intriguing puzzles that she discussed, and that paper really enriched our understanding of successional dynamics. Throughout the period between 2005 and 2020, Teresa served as the co-chair or committee member of some 16 PhD and master's students, many of whom are here today. Many of these students worked on advancing our understanding of fire ecosystem dynamics here in interior Alaska, but they also worked on a whole bunch of other things. So issues of climate sensitivity, community and ecosystem responses to other disturbances, for example, invasive species, or social ecological knowledge of climate change in rural communities. So she was involved in all sorts of programs. I had the opportunity to work closely with her as a co-advisor on many students' projects, and she was just a remarkable mentor, whether we were in the lab or in the office or in the field. She was just amazing at interacting with students, and she had this way of asking questions that really got them to think. Between 2005 and 2014, she had a couple of projects funded with the Joint Fire Science Program with several of her colleagues that are here today, addressing successional dynamics along following fire in interior Alaska. And they worked across sites that burned during the horrendous year of 2004, when some 3 million acres of interior Alaska burned. And they found strong influences of fire characteristics on the relative success of different regeneration patterns and strategies that shape the patterns of species assemblages we see on the landscape today. They showed that this was against a backdrop of other very slowly changing environmental factors, such as soil physical chemical characteristics, notably soil pH, that had a huge effect on species abundances completely independent of regeneration traits. And so these studies suggested that community responses to changes in fire characteristics are quite predictable from a set of underlying mechanisms then that link the relative species pool at a given site with fire characteristics to post-fire outcomes via these measurable regeneration traits. And the final thing I'd like to mention is that she also worked on post-fire successional trajectories in shrub and tussock tundra landscapes out on the Seward Peninsula with Amy Breen. They had a project and other colleagues that was funded by the Western Alaska Landscape Conservation Cooperative. The Seward Peninsula is just a fascinating place, and if you haven't been there, fly to Nome, rent a car, drive around, get out and walk through the bush, troll for bears. It's a fascinating, fascinating landscape. It's a region that has experienced climate warming and notable changes in the fire frequency and fire intensity over the last 50 years. And the other interesting thing is that there's a lot of tundra out there that has experienced reburns over the past 50 years. And it's also a landscape where shrub encroachment has been dramatic over the past 100 years. And so previous research then had discussed the coupling of climate warming and shrub invasion and fire severity. Amy and Teresa used a unique set of study sites out there that included unburned sites and sites that had burned once and reburned twice and 3 times. And given the previous work, they obviously hypothesized that an intensifying fire regime would be tied to shifts in graminoid tussock tundra to mixed shrub tundra and then ultimately to shrub tundra. But a striking finding was that actually high-severity fires and repeat burns promoted the recruitment and perpetuation of grasses. And grasses were, for example, completely absent in unburned tundra, but they constituted up to 80% of the cover in many areas that were severely burned or had reburned. The results of this study were published recently in 2021 in a paper in Arctic and Alpine Research entitled "Does Fire Always Accelerate Shrub Expansion in Arctic Tundra?" Examining a novel grass-dominated succession trajectory on the Seward Peninsula. It's really a fascinating read, and if you're interested in fire in tundra, you should read the paper. Because the paper presents a really interesting discussion of not only their work on the Seward Peninsula, but work that had been done previously from Martha Reynolds and Chuck Racine's work in the Arctic, Skip's work, worked by the group, of course, the big group that worked on the Anatuga burner fire, and other people working on how repeat burns are affecting the distribution of woody plants and trees. For example, Jill Johnstone's work in the Yukon territories. And in the discussion, they present a conceptual model addressing potential outcomes and scenarios for what is going to happen in many of these landscapes that are warming. And their model suggests that indeed, with warming, you're going to likely see shrubs become more prevalent in areas like the Seward Peninsula. And this is, of course, going to lead to an intensification of the fire regime. It's going to result in more exposed mineral soil, which is going to promote the invasion of more woody plants. But they also suggest that with further reburning, the likelihood is that these areas are going to lose woody vegetation cover, and a lot of this landscape is going to be converted to grasslands. And there are many interesting consequences of that they talk about, including declines in soil nitrogen and declines in the forage quality of many plants on which moose and caribou and ptarmigan depend. So anyway, this is just a 5.5-minute snapshot into Teresa's professional career that was a freight train, and she worked with so many other people and so many other projects, and she was a phenomenal force. And we all have spent, a lot of us have spent time in the field with her, and we're really going to miss being with her in the field.
That summary was not easy, so thanks, Roger. And I will, throughout the rest of our programming, Amy has gathered some special plants that many of you can see are left in front of you. These are some of, they're incredible species of the boreal forest. They're also some of Teresa's favorite. I almost told Roger I put this right here for the lovely sphagnum bouquet, because this is a fierce warrior of a plant, and I will always think of Teresa when I see sphagnum. Okay, we've come to reach the portion of the programming where we want to tap into this collective wisdom and experience, and also keep building, this legacy of remembrance that we have for Teresa. I do think we can't operate both mics at the same time.
There's one handheld mic and then there's one lav mic.
What happens if they both get turned on? Would we okay, all right. We have 2 mics that we can run around. If you have a story or remembrance of Teresa, I welcome you to please raise your hand and we will bring a mic to you. You've already talked.
There's a group of us standing around here wearing a badge of honor. So in case you can't read the shirt that says "Born to Burn," there's some poignancy to that. Teresa made these shirts back in like 2004.
Although Teresa and I kind of were in the same similar orbits, we didn't quite cross paths until a couple years ago. Jamie and Bob and Liam and Teresa and all had dinner at a fun restaurant near Fred Hutch Cancer Center for all the wrong reasons in Seattle. But I remember Jamie and I were hitting margaritas, and Bob and Teresa were kind of glowering at us, like, this isn't fair. And Liam was just adorable, which is one of his specialties. So that's when I first really met Teresa, and she'd actually told me at the time she thought I was a little intimidating. So I take that as an honor now. Sorry. And then the first time that the two of us really spent time together, I was up here for a meeting for work. We were both federal employees, and I got to come up and I said, hey, I want to stop by and see you. And she's like, well, I have to do a bell prep for a scope. Is that okay? I was like, that's like music to my ears. So I'm coming on over. And Jamie's downstairs in the garage, like reenacting Flash and welding with Lorien and Hanley, based on kind of a fictionalized version of Teresa. And that was in 2008, and in 2010, she appeared in the form of a voiceover using her poetic reflections in a stage production that was about climate change and adaptation, starred Terry Chapin and scientists and actors. And I wanted to share, because these are Teresa's actual words that she wrote. These are her poetic reflections on climate change and adaptation and why she does what she does as a scientist. And because these were excerpts that were presented in voiceover, they're sometimes incomplete sentences. That's not her fault. Okay, Teresa. To embrace that change is the only constant, and the natural order is about adapting to those changes. To honor the fragility of all systems to change, and that accepting change is not the same as denying responsibility for scientists or artists or any of us. I am a scientist, inspired to be a scientist, impassioned to be a scientist, for the smell of ledum and a black spruce bog, for the beauty of the patterns and processes and the chaos and complexity of the natural world. And a few lines later, there's nothing better or more satisfying than a day spent in a recently burned forest. Watching the return of life and experiencing the resilience of the ecosystem. I am blessed to feel continuing awe at my work and trying to understand the techniques and strategies plants have evolved to migrate, colonize, germinate, and grow. A bare piece of ground becomes a forest, or a grassland, or a bog. I hold a measurable appreciation for the land that provides for us in so many ways.
We might take one or two more comments. Does anybody want to help us close this community sharing? Yes.
Hello, I'm Catherine Copus, and Teresa and I met in graduate school. We defended our dissertations on the same day. Prior to that, a handful of months of shared suffering and the work that it took to get to that final point that was also the start of our science careers. I think for many of you, maybe it's the same as it is for me. There was a special niche that Teresa held in my life, and there's really no one else who could fill that place. And for me, it was maybe a little surprising to you, but Teresa and I both love to read trash novels. And both being intellectual women in science, it was a nice find in life to have a friend with whom I could do the literature takedown of these novels that we love to share. And also, as Jeff pointed out, we're both terrifically fast readers. So I would read a book, she would read a book, and 6 hours later read small books. And that went on, mailing books, sharing Kindle books, and for a lot of years, having an outlet, something that was just sort of on the other side of life compared to science and raising children, the other burdens of life. We have this escapist outlet that we share, and I miss that very much. We also, bring the level back up, also really enjoyed sharing a love of poetry. And although Teresa really loved her Fairbanks community, as Kendra pointed out, I think a part of her heart was also remaining in those dry desert landscapes. And the struggles of winters in Fairbanks were hard on Teresa, and she shared that regularly with me. And this poem that I shared with her once really spoke to that. Struggle of the long winter and the promise of spring, and so I'd like to share that with you right now. This poem is called Instructions on Not Giving Up, and I think Teresa really modified that spirit. As Dante pointed out, her will was incredible. I will never forget that. Instructions on Not Giving Up by the poet Ava Lamont. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree. More than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shaving their cotton candied blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains. It is the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shuck of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the content of aftermath. The leaves come, patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. A return to the strange idea of continuous living, despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it. The tree seems to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all.
I don't like talking in front of people, so this is a little awkward for me, but I met Teresa when she first came to UAF in 2000. She needed a boat driver. I've been working on Montana a long time, and so I took her down to start her thesis research. And I recognized in Teresa the fire that you guys all talk about. She was so full of that fire. She had a lot of sass too. I don't know, where's Jeff? She liked me. She really did. She kept me on my heels all the time. It was hard to come back with a witticism that could even impress her. She was amazingly bright person. She graduated in 2004. I started before her. We graduated in 2008. Teresa and I had many conversations about this. One was in your kitchen. Roger, she reminded me that I was a bright person, that I need to get my ass in gear and finish this up. And I did. I did finally graduate, and I appreciate her encouragement. I ended up taking a job soon after graduating in the Bay Area, and from a friend's recommendation, I found a cabin in the Redwoods, much like the cabin that I had here. And I basically went from that cabin to work down in the Bay Area and then back up into La Honda, where I retreated every day. And this is what is really meaningful to me. Teresa reached out to a group of friends that she had in the Bay Area. She was an avid reader, like more than any other person I've met except my wife. And Teresa was part of the book club, a group of women all across the nation, different parts of the country, that were reading this particular author. I think it was Sue Brockman, is that correct? Yeah. She had a warrior spirit. She loved reading about warriors, and that's what Sue Brockman wrote about. And so all of these women read the same books. And they connected online. They realized that they had a lot in common. At the time, it was about the Iraq War and some of the injustices and the like, but that's not really the point. She connected with these women. And when I moved to the Bay Area, she said, hey, there's a guy, he's a nice guy, moved down there, and I'm betting that he goes from Menlo Park to La Honda and back, and that's pretty much the extent of his life, because that's what he kind of did here in Fairbanks, right? So he doesn't get out much, and he's not going to. And so these women that she connected with started to try to engage me. And there's one in particular that I really became attached to. Jamie knows me. And that's my wife today. That's my soulmate. When I moved down there, I was 40. I didn't think that I would ever really connect with anybody. And I can say today that next weekend, I'm not going to be there, unfortunately, but I will celebrate distantly the birthday of my 12-year-old son. I have 2 behind him. So I have Teresa to thank for that. I never would have connected with this woman, and I never would have this family. And we all know, we know that, right? If I hadn't met her. And so I didn't really want to get up here to say anything, but I see that all of you have the same passion and feeling for her that I feel for her too. And I'm sorry that she's gone, Jamie. I'm really sorry. So thank you for hearing me out there.
Thank you all. I'm sure we did not get around to everyone, and I apologize. Please use the memory box and capture these so that all of your thoughts can be intertwined with her legacy. I believe, are we doing a double reading? Amy and Amy?
I think it'll just be me.
Double? Oh, it's just one Amy. Only one Amy. Also, return to theme of poetry.
Hello, everyone. There's Amy Breen, and Amy B. So I met Teresa in actually 2000, so 25 years of friendship. And what I have is a poem to read to you all. Interestingly, the other Amy had chosen the poem to read as well. And it's the same Mary Oliver poem that there's an excerpt on the back of the memory card. So be sure if you're interested to grab one of these. So that's the poem that we both and I think beyond it was group planning that we all thought would be appropriate. I am going to just start. I didn't want to speak because I was afraid that I would not make it through. I'm very impressed and with all of you who were. But there were a couple of things that came up as I was listening that I think had me thinking of her laughing above. One is Roger mentioning this paper that we had in Arctic and Alpine research, and I think Michelle Max over there too, and it was also Becky Hewitt that was part of that. But we ended up earning the Editor's Choice Award, and I think that we had one of the largest difficulties we've ever had with reviewers, so we were quite surprised and received that. And she thought it was because Merritt at the time was the director at Instar, but it's Editor's Choice. So she was just very much downplaying our contributions, and then she had recently been diagnosed, and she said, I think it's because most of the authors, or many, like a few of the authors on the paper, have been diagnosed with cancer. And that's what she thought, that somehow that's how we were, had been chosen. And I'm putting out there, I'm a breast cancer survivor, and she had recently been diagnosed, and she thought it was somehow cancer related, and just downplaying any part of it being like the work that we'd actually done. I just, it's something I just still laugh about today. And then another thing is that I made these collections of plants, and one of them being this sphagnum winstorfii, and I imagined her laughing because I wanted to go collect where I could also get larch. So I went to a black spruce bog, there was also larch. I knew her work, and I knew there were acidic, non-acidic areas, and I was specifically looking for sphagnum, and I wanted to get an array of sphagnum, which are more often in the acidic forests, and I was in the larch, which is non-acidic. So that's why I walked away with one of these more calcareous-loving sphagnum, but and there were no others, because I didn't think she's probably was laughing about that, because I had not actually done my, and Jamie knows, I mean, actually Liam probably knows too, at this point, but I just found that humorous. So with that, I'm reading Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. So thank you to Teresa for bringing us together. And thank you, Jamie and Liam, for being part of my chosen family. We called one another friend sisters. And also, she was often willing to let me borrow her mom. When there was a mom type question, she'd say, call my mom. I told her she's going to call you. She won't mind. Linda, thank you. Good to see you too, Gary. Just everyone for being here. And I think we're moving on to the next part of the program.
So as Amy mentioned, we are progressing into some of the closing parts of today's program. I would love to invite Marilyn. She's going to be leading us in music and song.
So my understanding of my role here is, so here's the image that I've gotten as I've been listening to all these stories. Well, I knew Teresa from when she was little, and then she was big. Is we're in a car, maybe we're in the Mojave Desert, maybe we're in the Boreal Forest. We got the windows open, the Beatles are on the radio, and we got Lorien and Teresa in the back seat. We got Linda and Michael in the front seat. We got all of our friends along. And we're gonna sing some Beatles, and we're gonna sing it like we mean it. Okay? So the words are up there. You all know the song, and we're gonna sing it so Teresa and Michael can hear us. And let's do this thing. All right. All these places have their home.
for journeying with us today. I do want to make just a couple of closing remarks, and then I'm going to ask the family to officially close this section of the program. Just when you think you know a pretty amazing person, all the stories come out. Hell kitten. Yeah, she was an incredibly complex, rich ecosystem that I think we'll all continue to learn about. And I'm just very, very blessed and thankful. So let's carry forward what we started and built here, what many of you have been building together. Let's continue to carry that forward. These memories, these experiences will never leave us, and they are a reminder that even in loss and grief, we are never alone. In honoring Teresa today, we're also honoring so many other things: chosen family, togetherness, community, the ability to come together and experience hard things in beauty and love. Resilience is something I thought I understood, but Teresa often corrected me. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about moving forward, recovering and reorganizing in a way that sustains life and love. And that is what we are doing here together. Liam has created some more content that I think really embodies this, and we would like to play that for you now. Other and heal in the next segment of today's event, where we will break bread, continue to share this amazing food that you have all brought, and share laughter in Teresa's memory. I do think it's important to have the family close this event. Maybe a song. Are you going to lead us out by just playing a song? Yes.
So at every family holiday meal, as they became harder to achieve through distance, it became more important for my sister to start every meal that we ate together with a poem, which I feel has been sufficiently and appropriately and wonderfully done. So this activity of consuming food has now been inaugurated. I would invite you to sample from this magnificent board, which you have all contributed to. And to keep things simple, we will proceed in order of favorite Beatle, with Ringo lovers going first. Thank you all for coming.